2026 Senate prediction. We are less than 3 months from the midterms, and right now the national environment looks pretty bad for Republicans. Democrats are leading the generic congressional ballot by roughly 6 points. Donald Trump sitting at around a 43% approval rating and a 54% disapproval rating. Affordability is still a huge problem. Inflation cooled to 3.4% in July, but real wages were still down from a year ago. And then there is Iran. In an August Ipsos poll, 61% of Americans said that the decision to use military force against Iran was a mistake. At the same time, Democrats are changing. Progressive candidates like Abdul Saeed in Michigan and Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota just won major Senate primaries, while Democratic Socialists and other anti-establishment candidates have been gaining ground across the country. So nationally, this looks like it could be a very good year for Democrats. But the Senate isn't the House. Republicans currently control the Senate 53 to 47. That means Democrats see a net gain of 4 seats. And even in a Democratic national environment, the Senate map forces them to win races in states that are much more Republican than the country as a whole, including states that Trump won by over 10 in 2024. That is why the map matters so much. Democrats have a much clearer path to the House because every House seat is up for re-election, while only a third of the Senate seats are. If Democrats cannot take the Senate, Trump still has a Republican chamber on his side. If they can, Democrats control Congress. So this is the electoral angle, and let's break down the United States Senate. Let's start with the safe Democrat states. I'm 100% sure that these states are going blue. Those are Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, Minnesota, Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. Now, the safe Republican states are Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, and West Virginia. That leaves both parties at 44 seats. Remember, Democrats can get 51. Republicans only need 50 seats because they have the tie-breaking vote, which is J.D. Vance in the Senate. Let's start with the first competitive race, Nebraska, where there's actually no polling whatsoever. Pretty interesting. And what's interesting about this race is it's the Republican Ricketts against Dan Osborn, an independent. This is the 2024 election, and Dan Osborn also ran, so he's not a stranger for running for Senate as an independent. But here's the thing, even though you're an independent, you're still running against a Republican in Nebraska, which is really hard to do, and for that reason I have this race as likely Republican. Now, Kansas, there's not a lot of polling, there's a little bit, but the polling all has Republican Marshall winning, and all three of these pollsters are Democrat-leaning pollsters, which means Marshall is likely to win by more than these pollsters even suggest. So, Marshall's going to win by a likely margin. Earlier this video, I said Democrats are set to do great in this midterm. And to illustrate, I want you guys to look at the grayed out states, the states that haven't filled in yet. Now, look at this map. What do you notice? I'll tell you what I noticed. I noticed that besides these 2 states, Maine and New Hampshire, every grayed out state voted for Trump. Democrats are making gains in states that Trump won. We're not fighting over the swing states. But let's start by talking about those states Harris won, starting with New Hampshire, where Representative Pappas is currently beating Sununu by 3.3 points in the race. Now, what's interesting about Sununu is this is John Sununu. And John Sununu's brother actually was governor of the state, and his dad also had power. The Sununu dynasty has controlled New Hampshire for so long, and they are such a well-liked and well-known family. However, Republicans are doing terrible this cycle, and they've mostly left New Hampshire behind because they wanted to fight for more red states like Texas, Ohio, and Iowa. So for that reason, Pappas is probably going to win by a likely margin. Now let's talk about Maine. Maine's an interesting case because it's a pretty blue state. But Susan Collins, the Republican, is probably one of the most moderate senators in the Senate. So she's winning in this blue state by being a moderate and by being someone who is known and liked for generations because she's been a senator for decades. What's interesting, if you go back to 2020, look at polls. Polls had her getting crushed, but she still won by 8.6, which is giving a lot of Republicans and her hope. However, there's a big difference between then and now. Her approval rating. She was not very approved of now. She actually was pretty approved of back then, and her approval rating is dropping, which means she's probably not going to have the same bump that she had before. So she's probably going to lose the state by a lean margin. Florida is a state that has been trending very right recently. It was a swing state in 2016, and Trump won it in a landslide in 2024. That said, polling for this race is much more iffy. Vindman is winning one of the polls, but it's not a very reliable poll. And all the reliable polls, like Emerson, has Moody winning by a pretty good amount. So I'm going to have her winning by a likely margin. Next state is North Carolina. North Carolina is a swing state, but it hasn't voted for a Democrat president since Barack Obama in 2008. That said, their popular former governor, Roy Cooper, is running for Senate, and just look at his polls. They love him. He's going to win. He's going to win by a lot. Likely blue. Next up is Georgia. Georgia is another swing state. Trump won it twice. But their popular Senator John Ossoff, who actually won in an upset in 2020 in the runoff, is doing just incredible in polling. He's winning by so much, so it's going to be another likely blue state. Michigan is an interesting state. Obama won it by 16.5, then by 9.5, and Trump surprisingly flipped it by a little bit, and then Biden won it, and then it went back to Trump by only 1.4. For a state barely red at all, you'd expect in such a blue wave for Democrats to easily win it. However, Democrats are not, because their candidate is Abdul El-Sayed, who is a radical leftist who campaigned with Hassan Piker, who said that America deserved 9/11. Now, because Abdul El-Sayed is a generationally bad candidate, I have this race as lean Republican. We got 4 states left, and what's interesting is Alaska voted for Trump by 13. Texas voted for Trump by 13. Iowa voted for Trump by 13. Ohio voted for Trump by, guess how much? Nah, I'm kidding, only 11. But the point stands. This is deep red territory. For Democrats to win the Senate, they have to win 3 deep red seats, which seems pretty unlikely to me. But because of how big of a blue wave it seems to be this year, they actually have a pretty good chance. And polling shows that it's actually pretty likely. But let's start with the first state, Iowa, where Republican Hinson is winning by 0.3. And the reason why Iowa is competitive as a deep red state, by the way, I'm saying deep red because it's deep red now, but like 12, 13 years ago, it was actually a deep blue state. But they got Sand as a Democrat. Sand is running for governor, not for Senate, but governor's on the top of the ticket. It's usually the most talked about race in the state. And Sand is such a good candidate that he's bringing Democrats out. He's energizing Democrats. And when you bring Democrats out to vote, they're going to vote for Senate, so they might as well vote Democrat Senate. That said, it's still a pretty red state, and I don't think a good gubernatorial candidate is enough to bring Turek over Hinson, but it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. I don't know. I'm going to say tilt Republican. Very, very close. Next state we got is Texas, where James Talarico is winning by 1.9. It's actually interesting. Emerson is probably the best pollster on here, and they have Paxton winning. But Paxton is a pretty bad candidate. Talarico is a pretty good candidate. And Texas is not as red as you guys would think. It only voted for Trump by around 6 in 2020. It is a good shot at going blue eventually. Democrats have been trying for like 20 years. This is their dream to make Texas blue. And I think this is the one time they could actually make it happen. So I'm saying Texas is going tilt Talarico. Again, tilt means I don't know, but if I had to pick one, I'd pick Talarico. Next state we got is Ohio. Ohio is interesting because Sherrod Brown, he was a longtime senator and lost in 2024. But he was like, 2026 is going to be a blue wave, so I'm going to run. So that's what he did. He ran, and he's actually up in the polls because he has such good name recognition. But what's interesting is, look at this poll. The New York Times / Siena College. If I want you guys to take away one thing from this video, it should be this name, New York Times Siena College. Because in 2022, so many people were predicting a red wave besides this pollster. And in 2024, a lot of people were predicting Kamala Harris to win the popular vote besides this pollster. New York Times Siena College poll is the gold standard for polling. When polls say one way, they're always right, no matter what way polls lean. And they have Hussey winning by 3. It's worth noting that this is a June poll. It's not super recent, but I like them and I trust them. And because of how much I trust them, I'm going to base my prediction generally off of them. I'm not going to have him winning by 3. I'm going to have him winning by a tilt margin. So this is me saying, I don't know, he might win, which means Republicans have the Senate. But let's talk about that last state really quick, Alaska. Now, remember I said New York Times Siena College? Well, they polled the state, R+2. And Alaska Survey Research is the same pollster. They've consistently overestimated Democrats by 5 points in Alaska. And if you look, actually, they're getting redder and redder and redder over time. But still, it's a terrible pollster. This is a great pollster. So I'm going to have Sullivan winning by a tilt margin too, which leaves the Senate to 49 Democrat to 51 Republican. So what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with me? Do you guys not? Leave your answers in the comments down below.